So related to my Jeopardy appearance, I watched the movie Creed once a week. And that was partially because I realized that I needed a coach.
Welcome to another episode of the Filmosophers, where we talk about films and filmosophy with the people who make films and the people who love films. I'm Dean Slider.
And I'm Chris Bush.
And we are delighted to have as our guest today, Buzzy Cohen.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi. Hi. Buzzy Cohen zoomed to internet fame a few years ago as a 9-time Jeopardy champion who then returned to trounce the opposition in the Jeopardy Tournament of Champions. In real life, by the way, maybe you know who said this, Buzzy. The word reality should never be written except between quotation marks.
That's true.
That was Nabokov.
Oh, yeah.
Vladimir Nabokov, right. So in so-called real life, in alleged real life, Buzzy is a music executive. That's how he was all introduced every day on Jeopardy. This is a particularly special episode for me because once upon a time, I was an English teacher at a fancy prep school in New Jersey, and Buzzy was my student in the 10th grade, and then for a few more times. And on Buzzy's first Jeopardy run, on the semifinals, the Thursday show, he was about to be eliminated. He was on the brink of losing when they came to Final Jeopardy, and the answer was...
Waiting for Godot.
Waiting for Godot, which was the play that he had read in my 10th grade English class when I was the only teacher left in the school teaching it. Everyone else had stopped teaching it because they said, it drives the kids crazy. And I said, right.
So I want to know, did Buzzy share any of the prize winnings with you? Because clearly you were responsible for his being spared elimination.
Yeah, well, that was sort of a redemption move because I don't know if you remember, Dean, but I had a daily double in my initial run that was looking for Walden.
Right.
And I blew, which we also did in your class, and I said on Walden Pond, which had gotten mixed up with on Golden Pond, which is very topical for this. Walden got mixed up with on Golden Pond. Mm-hmm. I think I said Walden Pond, and he was like, and I added more instead of taking away, right?
Right.
But I did get a whole Emerson category thanks to you. So
right. So what is that? So what's bottom line? What's my percentage of the take?
Yeah, we'll talk about it another time.
The thanks of a grateful nation.
Exactly. Yeah. My mother thanks you. My father thanks you,
right.
And I thank you.
Right. Right. I want to say one other thing about Buzzy as a person before we go ahead here, because he's the only person I've ever met who is like this. Some people are left-handed. Some people are right-handed. Some people are ambidextrous. And then there's Buzzy.
Yeah, I do some stuff with my left hand and some stuff with my right hand. But when I was learning how to write in kindergarten or so, I would start with my left hand and I'd get to the middle of the page and switch. And then the teachers didn't like that, obviously, because that's not correct. So I ended up left-handed as a writer, I think, because you start on the left side of the page. If I had been writing in Arabic or Hebrew or something else, I would have ended up right-handed because it was always at the point where I was switching that they would tell me to stop. But if you think about it, it's a pretty good way to write. Just, half the page with your left hand, half the page with your right hand. But I do all kinds, some stuff I'm left dominant, some stuff I'm right dominant. It really depends on what I'm doing, which is a kind of a weird way to be handed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just take this as further evidence that you are, in fact, an alien.
Yeah.
And that I believe that you and Alicia, your lovely wife, have been sent here in case of thermonuclear apocalypse to repopulate the globe with beautiful, brilliant children, and you're well on your way.
We're working on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Buzzy, tell us about a couple of your favorite films, please.
Well, first of all, I really love film, and in thinking about getting ready for this, I thought about how my tastes in film have changed. So as opposed to my favorite film, what's interesting to me is like when I was a very serious young person, when you knew me in high school, when I was in college, I was very into, great films, classic films, art films. And as I get older, I'm kind of more into more mainstream films. And maybe that's just a question of time. Like I have less time to go seek out these independent films or whatever. I think also it's a function of being in Los Angeles. Like when I was in New York, I felt like there were a lot of more independent films being shown at like art house. Whereas because LA is like the center of the film industry, I feel like everyone's focused on like the film industry as opposed to people making films in unexpected ways. Right. That being said, let's talk favorite films. So related to my Jeopardy appearance, I watched the movie Creed once a week. And that was partially because I realized that I needed a coach, right? I needed, I knew how to I was learning how to prepare myself for the experience of being on Jeopardy, but I didn't have that coach of the person in your ear saying like, okay, you got this, stay focused. You don't have the corner man in boxing, right? Who's kind of like, rubbing your shoulders and saying, oh, you got him right where you want him or whatever it is. Or, okay, that didn't go well. Let's get back in the game. Let's stay focused. And so what I did was once a week, I was traveling to the Bay Area. On the flight up, I would do my studying, practicing, flashcards, all kinds of stuff. On the way back, when I was tired, I would watch Creed, and I started to internalize the Rocky Balboa as coach in that movie. I'm a big fan of the Rocky franchise, and so it was sort of like it came out at the right time for me, and I love that movie. So that's one of my favorite films.
I must say, I rewatched Creed last night, and that is a beautifully made film.
It's incredible. I think it really got snubbed that year in the awards. Like I know Sylvester Stallone was nominated for supporting actor, but I thought it was filmed incredibly. The way they shot those fight scenes where you really feel like you're in it. And not in a like overly artificial way, but they really put you in it. I eventually got Alicia to watch it because she was like, sort of like, whatever, this is some, boxing movie. And she was crying, when at the end of the movie. I mean, it's a great movie.
It is a great film.
So yeah, when There Will Be Blood came out, I was living in New York, and that movie, like, I loved that movie. I went and saw it 3 or 4 times in the theater, which in New York is, close to a week's pay to go that many times to a movie in the theater. And that was one of those movies where I was like, this could be tattooed on the inside of my eye. Like I could, every time I close my eyes, if that's what I'm seeing, there's a lot. I thought there was a lot in that movie about, to me, it has that sort of Moby Dick aspect of sort of this allegory about America and capitalism and the individual and all of these things that I thought were in there, the way that you can read Moby Dick on all those different levels. Yes, it's a story about a whaling ship, but it can be and is so much more.
Right. But so first trivia question for you today.
Goodness.
Whose voice in that character is Daniel Day-Lewis imitating?
I don't know.
Drink your milkshake.
I know, like we've talked about the, Heath Ledger as the Joker to me was Stuart Smalley, right? That was the, I'm good enough, I'm smart, right? That was the Al Franken, but I don't know who Daniel Day-Lewis was channeling there.
John Huston.
Oh yeah, totally, absolutely, yeah. Now that you said it, it's totally there.
Now, I have a friend who was critical of the film because he thought Daniel Day-Lewis was doing a Huston impression. And then when I read that Daniel Day-Lewis studied Huston films to model the character after Huston, the voice pattern, the delivery, it was intentional. Oh,
and in fact, the Noah Cross, the John Huston character in Chinatown, is everything that you're saying about the
right.
Ahab, the white whale, the
Totally.
capitalism as the monster.
Yeah, and in fact, like going to Chinatown and the whole thing with John Huston also connects to me of Aguirre, Wrath of God, which is one of my favorite movies, and another movie that is just about everything, right? It's about colonialism. It's about Vietnam. It's about Nazism. It's like in this weird way, this intense and surreal and insane look at all of these horrors that people, and especially European or American people, have committed over the centuries in this one guy.
So yeah, in one insane performance.
One insane performance. Yeah.
That was Klaus Kinski.
Yeah. That was, I think, the first movie that they did together, if I'm not mistaken. And there's an interesting thing where I think they originally were going to shoot it in English or something, but it ended up in German. So you have all these like it's a mix of Eastern European actors and there's indigenous actors and stuff, but you're watching these conquistadors speaking German, which just adds to the surreal aspect of that film. Yeah. The descent into madness as he searches for El Dorado. I mean, it's almost heavy-handed if it wasn't so well done,
And speaking of descent into madness, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
I love that movie. That's a movie that if it's ever, like back when we had TV, if that was on TV, I would watch it. There are those movies where it's like, okay, even though I've seen it a million times, I will watch that movie.
And even though it's 2 a.m.
Yeah.
I'll just hang on till the next commercial. But...
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. An amazing film.
I believe I've seen photos of you dressed as Willy Wonka for Halloween.
That's right. Yeah. My daughter, I showed it to my daughter and she loved it. We actually had to stop watching it because she would imitate Veruca Salt, who is sort of not the character you want her to be mimicking, but she and a friend wanted to be Oompa Loompas. And so they were Oompa Loompas and then I was Willy Wonka.
Now, speaking as a parent, at what age do you feel it's okay to show kids Willy Wonka without permanently traumatizing them?
I don't know that there is an age. I mean, I think even as adults, you see that scene when they're going through the tunnel, and that's everybody's trauma, right?
Yeah.
Like that's horrific. And he's singing that song, that creepy song.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is all of the thing that always stuck with me were all those little snippets of poetry that he added in, and none of that was in the book. That was all screenplay stuff. I mean, and I think Roald Dahl did not like the film, and it didn't do well in theaters, if I'm not mistaken. But it's kind of become
that's correct. It was resurrected by the emergence of
home video.
Video. But that song. Here's today's second trivia question for you. What rock musician made a cover version of the boat theme?
I mean, I would guess like Frank Zappa would be my guess.
Close, darker.
Captain Beefheart?
Marilyn Manson.
Okay. Yeah.
Who also cites this as his favorite film.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because it's a morality play, but the morality is unclear.
Yeah.
At the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. And what makes it, and the the lack of clarity, the fact that we're just going to be in a land of complete ambiguity through the whole thing, is established the first time we see
Willy Wonka. Yeah, and that was Gene Wilder insisted on that.
Yeah, he said he said he would only take the job if they let him do that.
Yeah, where he comes out and he's limping, and then he does the somersault because he wanted you to know that you can't trust anything else that he does or says.
Yeah.
Including you find out retroactively that the whole Slugworth situation was a ruse. He created this whole ruse from the beginning, basically.
Right.
Which is kind of a horrible thing, that you're secretly testing all these children on their honesty. I mean, these are like 10-year-old kids, right? Yeah. That you're giving them something, but the test is like, will you give it back to me when that's not a great lesson.
Yeah. And the test is pass fail. And if you fail, you die, apparently.
You die. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you see the Tim Burton remake of the film?
I did. Yeah, I did. I didn't love it. I mean, I think part of what I liked, obviously the music was a big part of what I loved about who was it? Mel Stewart directed the original one.
Yes.
And while I think that Johnny Depp probably played Willy Wonka more closely to the way he is in the book, I liked what Gene Wilder brought to him. Like the kind of Peter Pan aspect of the Johnny Depp version was less interesting to me than a sort of insane adult, which is, he definitely comes off as more of an adult in the Gene Wilder version. And I think that dynamic is more interesting. And I also, the production design of the Mel Stewart one was really interesting to me as well. It all felt very tactile, which is what made you feel so much as a kid that you wanted to be in there, in that, the room, and it really all felt, even if you knew it was plastic or whatever, there was enough that was real that you bought into it. Whereas the Tim Burton one, because there was so much CGI, it all just felt like a cartoon, and anyone could make a cartoon of that. It didn't feel like a world that you could live in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of interestingly enough, like another one of my favorite movies is Jurassic Park, like obviously a big blockbuster. But I mean, if you think about who's in that movie, like the way that he got like Laura Dern and
Jeff Goldblum. I mean, everybody who's in the Sam Neill, like these were all kind of like serious actors. Even what's his name, the guy whose brother does all Richard Attenborough.
Richard Attenborough. He's not like and he got him to do this big kind of popcorn movie. But to me, what made that movie so successful was that it was kind of the last movie before everything was CGI. And so a lot of it was robotics and animatronics, and you really feel the weight of like the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Velociraptors, even if they're not as dynamic as they are if they were CGI. You really feel the weight and the presence of like a physical thing.
I've started to notice in films just in the last year or two, I think. I don't know what's going on technically, maybe you do, but it feels as if they've improved something about the CGI. The way all the early stuff, the early CGI, it's like early CDs. When CDs first came out, it was like you had to keep turning it up louder because it felt insubstantial. Right. It felt like the music was being made by ghosts or something.
Yeah. And like everything was too light. Nothing kind of thudded hard enough. Everything bounced and floated down.
And then somehow they found a way to restore at least some illusion of that substance. And it seems as if they've started to get there with the CGI as well. Does that ring a bell for you?
I think so. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
But the Jurassic Park, I always think of the terrifying roaring of the dinosaurs. And
you're going to ask me what made that sound, and I'll tell you.
Yes, please.
A koala. It's mostly a koala.
Get out.
Yeah, most of that is the sound that koalas make. I think they mixed in like a donkey or something like that, but the main like roar, that kind of like roar is actually what I think male koalas make that sound.
Wow. Wow. You know, there's been some recent research, paleontologists analyzing the petrified remains of like Tyrannosaurus larynxes.
And they have
they've
like squeaky.
Apparently they cooed like doves.
Yeah. Well, they're birds. I mean, they're all birds. They all had feathers. They were all covered in feathers.
Right. And in any case, whatever kind of sound they made, that, you know, the classic thing, which is roar chomp, which they always roar and finish off the roar by biting your head off.
Yeah.
That's physically impossible because they would suffocate.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because they look a lot at the secretary bird, right? I don't know if you're familiar with this, but it's a primarily flightless raptor. So it looks like a hawk or an eagle with these really long legs. And it does fly, but it's not like a soaring bird of prey. And they look at how they actually kill their prey or other kind of, you know, cassowary or something like that. And most of it's stomping. You know, a lot of what they do is stomp on these things, and then they use their beak to kind of like pick them apart. So they think that there was probably more stomping going on than like biting and ripping, although they had teeth, which our birds don't really have.
I have to say, I'm not sure I appreciate having my illusions
shattered
with koala bears, cooing birds, and stomping.
Yeah. The truth hurts, man.
Buzzy, you know, as Dean has already let on, we plan on peppering our conversation with trivia questions.
I love it.
Related to the movies that you've mentioned you like, and I'm sure that, you know, you won't mind at all, and you'll expect,
I love it.
That's the price you pay for being this.
And I actually, you know, I studied, in addition to just like loving movies and learning a lot from movies, I studied especially for you know, Jeopardy. I studied the Academy Awards because that's, you know, even if they don't have an Academy Award category, it's a great shorthand for knowing what was happening in film across, you know, different times
in a given year.
Yeah. So best picture, I don't remember all of it now because I'm not studying, but at the time.
So speaking of which, I'm going to throw you a softball here.
Okay.
From Willy Wonka, Jack Albertson and Gene Wilder faced off 3 years earlier. In what venue? In what regard?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I know. I have no idea.
I guess it's not a softball. Maybe it's too much of a trick question. So they were both nominated for Best Supporting Actor in 1960.
Oh, I thought you were saying they were in the same film. Sorry,
I
misunderstood.
didn't say that. I said in the same venue.
So Jack Albertson was nominated, and I know it. I can remember that he was nominated, but I'm trying to remember what the film was. It wasn't a comedy. It was like it was a drama, if I remember correctly. And it was, I think, the year that Gene Wilder was nominated for, was it Blazing Saddles that he was nominated for?
No, you get a second try.
Okay.
You got a mulligan, which Alex Trebek would never give you. You got a mulligan.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know, I love trivia, but I'm also, you know, like, I'm not necessarily a natural. There are these people that just like catalog everything, and I have a little bit of that, but I have to do a lot of work to like keep it going. I'll give up. You can just tell me.
Okay, it's okay. No shame.
And the pain.
So from the film year 1967, Gene Wilder was nominated for the producers.
Oh, right.
Producers, and Jack Albertson won that category, beating Gene Wilder for The Subject Was Roses. His co-star was Patricia Neal, who was married to.
No idea.
Al Dahl.
Oh, there you go. That's probably how they connected him.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Patricia Neal. I did know that now that you mention it, that was, you know.
You mentioned also when you were talking about There Will Be Blood. Got another one for you. Daniel Day-Lewis is the actor who's won the most Best Actor Oscars.
That's right. Yeah. With
for that
4,
role,
I believe. 3 other. Yeah.
Three
Lincoln, and My Left Foot.
My Left Foot. That's right. 8 other actors have each won 2 Best Oscar awards.
Okay.
How
You want
many
them
of
all?
can you name?
We're saying actor, male only, correct?
Best actor. Yeah, best actor, like the
Yeah,
Daily
okay.
category.
Yeah,
Can you
so
name
I know that Brando has won.
Yes.
I know that now this is something that like when I was studying I could rattle off.
Okay, is there time to watch Creed?
No. Yeah. So okay, so I know Brando won. I know that let me think about this.
One actor won 2 years in a row.
What's that?
One actor won 2 years in a row.
That's right. Is it Tom Hanks? Did he win 93, 94?
Correct. And another actor actually won 2 years in a row.
Was it Spencer
37 and
Tracy?
38. Yep.
Spencer Tracy? Yeah.
Yep.
I was getting there.
Good
Okay,
going.
so I've got 3. Now let me think about this. Now I know that there's okay. Hold on. I gotta like
Now,
I'm running through them in my head. De Niro? No, De Niro's only won once.
Well, he won one Best Actor and one Best Supporting Actor.
Right. Pacino only won once. Oh, I know. Dustin Hoffman has won twice.
Yes.
Jack Nicholson has only won once. Okay, yeah, sorry. I mean, this is what it's like.
No, you did pretty well, Buzzy. You did admirably.
The hard one is Brando because the wins are so far apart.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another one that's like that where they won.
What are they? What are the Brando wins?
On the Waterfront and The Godfather.
And The Godfather.
Yeah.
Frederick March.
Oh, Friedrich March, yeah.
Jack Nicholson won 2, 22 years apart.
Yeah, that was As Good as It Gets.
And Cuckoo's.
Yeah.
Sean Penn won 2.
That's right, for Milk and
Mystic River, right?
Yeah.
And Gary Cooper.
Gary Cooper. I would have gotten Gary Cooper.
All right. Well,
right. That was High Noon and Sergeant York, right?
Yeah, 41 and 50. That's right. Yep. I think that's right.
It's in there somewhere.
Buzzy, let's bring the trivia back to Willy Wonka for a moment,
Okay.
if we can. If
the punishment continues. Yeah.
Okay. So the town that they soar over at the end
in Germany.
Do you know the name of the town?
I used to, but I don't know now.
It's
not Brandenburg, but it's
it's Nordlingen.
Nordlingen.
Okay. What is the unique geographical feature of Nordlingen?
I have no idea.
It's situated in a 14-kilometer wide asteroid crater.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, made from an asteroid impact 14 million
years ago. You guys really
ago.
went deep. Yeah. So here's the thing. Well, and this actually brings up a good point, which is that a lot of people call Jeopardy trivia, but Jeopardy is actually a general knowledge quiz. They wouldn't go. Trivia is more like what we're doing now, right? Where you go really deep, whereas as opposed to, knowing the best, that's a general knowledge, knowing who the presidents are, but knowing, what Calvin Coolidge's nickname for his penis was, that's trivia, right?
Do you know the answer to that question?
It was Warren G. Harding.
Warren G. Harding, that's right. And it was a trick question. You passed. That was a test. You passed. But hold on. I'm going to ask you guys. There was something that came up recent. Here's a great piece of trivia that I'm going to ask you guys because you guys are into film. 2, and I'm going to say 2.5 people have won an Academy Award and a Nobel Prize.
Ah.
Am I allowed to do this? Am I allowed to flip the script?
Yeah,
yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh,
there's no pressure on us.
Payback's a bitch.
Yeah.
Expectations on us are very low, so
yeah,
not a problem. But Nobel Prize winners.
No, wait, it's 2.5 people.
Yeah.
Okay, so that implies that one of the prizes was shared.
No, it's
like
not that.
Literature? Would the prize be literature?
It could be, but the half one is because I don't know that it's disputed about whether the half person actually received the Academy Award. Actually, it's a little complicated.
Yeah.
Which also brings me to the Marlon Brando thing, which is technically he's only accepted one Academy Award, right? Sacheen Littlefeather accepted.
Yeah. Right.
I actually watched an interview with him recently on, I think it was Dick Cavett after that, and he went into it, and he was basically saying everything that everyone's been saying in the last 5 years about film, about the way that minorities are portrayed, the way that there are no, they don't have a say in this, and it's anyway. That's another conversation. Okay, yeah. Academy Award Nobel Prize winners.
Okay, we give up.
Okay.
I was thinking Maya Angelou for some reason, but think someone who was associated with it with
George Bernard Shaw.
Oh, okay.
For Pygmalion, My Fair Lady.
Correct.
Bob
Dylan.
Wait, what was his Oscar for?
He had a Best Original Song. I forget which film it was in, but it was just a couple years ago. He won Best Original Song. It was pretty recent.
Wow.
And then the half is Al Gore.
Right. Won the Peace Prize for his environmental activism.
And Inconvenient Truth won documentary, and he may have gone up, but I don't know if he's actually named as the recipient.
As the producer, right.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was Davis Guggenheim got that award.
Right.
Okay, ask us another one.
Well, there's another like multi-prize one, which is there's one person who's won an Olympic gold medal and an Academy Award.
First thing that came to my mind was Johnny Weissmuller, but I think neither.
I was thinking
Jim Thorpe
or Jesse Owens, but
no.
Kobe Bryant.
Oh, Kobe! What did he win the Academy Award for?
He won for The Love of Basketball, which was a short that he produced and made, and he just won not that long ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
well, they're going to have to add an O to make it like an EOGOT.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It gets pretty wild. I mean, being a musician or a composer is usually the best way to get that EGOT. It's, if you look at the EGOT winners, there are some actor, other talents, but it's a lot of the, composer type folks.
How many are there? I'm thinking, I know Rita Moreno.
How many EGOTs?
Yeah.
Whoopi Goldberg, John Legend just joined. The composer's name starts with an M. It's not Menken, but it's I'm blanking on it. Again, this is like the stuff that I haven't studied. But you know what else is interesting is that the two people who have won in the most decades are Elmer Bernstein and John Williams. So it's like you have the most longevity as well. And you know who has won the most period Academy Awards?
The most Academy Awards.
Disney, I think, huh?
Disney, yeah. Most wins in a single year, most nominations in a single year. Because there was like a year where they won like best documentary for one of those like nature things, best animated short. That's he was rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
And the woman who has won the most is Edith Head.
Those Disney nature documentaries had a lot of bogus information.
Well, the lemmings, right?
The lemmings. Lemmings do not hurl themselves into the sea, everyone.
No.
I keep telling you. But the thing is, if we didn't have the myth of the lemmings, what would we use for that metaphor?
Yeah.
Right? And also, ostriches don't bury their heads in the sand.
Correct.
But it's like Woody Allen. We need the eggs, right? We need the metaphors.
It's like fake news.
And for that matter, if there weren't pretzels, what would we compare yoga poses to?
Right. A knot. Do we have knots?
Yeah, it's just
tie
doesn't
myself
have the
up
same.
in a knot.
Right. Okay, before we move on, I got to hit you with one more bit of Wonka trivia.
Okay.
And by the way, I don't like the word trivia because to me this is not trivial. This is life.
Right. It's important. Yeah. Well, trivia. You know where the word trivia comes from,
it's the
right?
three ways.
Well,
the intersection of the three roads originally.
Well, but it actually has to do with the liberal arts, right? So it was like logic, rhetoric, and whatever the third one is.
Yeah. It was the core curriculum
The core curriculum, essentially.
of the Middle Ages, and then
Yeah.
somehow it got inverted. The sense of it got inverted.
Well, because it was like, you were at the academy studying trivia. It was like the things that don't actually matter in life, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Maybe that derogatory sense of it came from the peasants who were out in the field doing the real work.
Yeah, or probably like a warrior class, right?
Right.
The guy who was off fighting the Crusades, making fun of his brother at Oxford or whatever.
Right. Okay. Okay. So one more from Wonka. Back to the town of back to Germany. After they wrapped and they left, went back home. The locations and the sets were taken over for production of another film. What film was that?
I have no idea.
Cabaret.
Oh, wow.
Ah.
That checks out. Yeah. Time-wise, at least.
Right.
Oh, that's
right.
fascinating.
Yeah. Okay, and which reminds me, the first scene shot in Gone with the Wind was the burning of Atlanta.
Right.
What is actually burning there?
It was the sets from another movie.
Yes. It was the set from...
Like, it's got to be, let me put it together. Was it like the sets from like The Wizard of Oz or something? Were they burning the Emerald City or something like that? Am I close?
It was the set from King Kong.
King Kong.
They were burning the big gate that holds Kong back.
Yeah. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. We could do this all day. And by the way,
Gone with the Wind. The opening scene with Scarlet and her two suitors.
Yeah.
You remember who one of the Tarleton?
The Tarleton twins.
Yeah.
One of them was best known for playing a different character on television.
No idea.
From another planet.
Oh, I have no idea. No, was
George
it
Reeves?
Oh,
George Reeves, Superman.
Yeah.
Yep.
I actually love his. I used to watch reruns of his Superman when I was a kid.
They were fantastic.
Yeah.
He always had that droll little smile, like everyone is so amazed at my powers, but it comes so easy to me.
And he also has what kind of Adam West picked up later, which was like the not athletic superhero build, like that kind of barrel-y torso. Which,
yeah.
We don't have that anymore. Everyone looks like Jason Momoa.
Right. Everyone's so bulked up and chiseled, and
it's like no beer bellies.
Yeah, come on. If you got superpowers, you don't need muscles.
You don't have to work out. That's one of the perks.
Yeah. Totally.
Right. The thing about I can't let go of Wonka. I gotta go one more here. Because we were talking about that boat ride.
Yeah.
Which the key line I think in the song lyric there is, there's no way of knowing which direction we are going.
Yeah.
And to me, that's such a profound statement. That's a statement about life.
Right.
And it's the thing that people don't want to hear.
And really the factory is a labyrinth, right? And you don't know if you're getting there or if you're going out. And he says right before they go through it, he goes, you can't go back. The only way out is forward.
Right.
But you don't really know where you're going. You're just continuing, right?
Yeah. And my favorite line of the whole film is when Mr. Salt says, "What is this, Wonka? Some kind of fun house?"
Why are you having fun?
Yeah. And it's like, there it is.
Yeah.
I think this may be a candidate for Cinema Nirvana Part 2, Dean.
Yeah.
Could be.
Could be.
I'm going to throw another trivia question at Buzzy. Groundhog Day is another one of your favorite movies you mentioned.
Yes.
There's a scene in Groundhog Day where Bill Murray is
Lake Titicaca.
He's watching Jeopardy in the hotel lobby.
Yeah.
the Jeopardy sequence shown featured a player who was a 5-time Jeopardy champion and winner of the Tournament of Champions that season.
Yeah. I don't know who it was, but I remember that was Bodies of Water was the category because he's going Lake Titicaca. But there is a Jeopardy contestant Facebook group, and those people have been brought up, and they have also brought up like Jeopardy featured in White Men Can't Jump, and there have been some other movies where they've shown Jeopardy, so they kind of point out who's featured. So I don't remember.
In White Men Can't Jump, do you remember whose dream it was to appear on Jeopardy?
It was Rosie Perez's, right? Quince.
That's right. Yeah, very good.
Well, Buzzy, what do people who have been on Jeopardy, who've played Jeopardy, what is it that they know? What is it that fraternity sorority knows that we civilians don't know? What is it that you can only know from the experience?
Well, I think one thing is just how different the experience of being on the show from the experience of watching the show is. Watching the show, you're usually relaxed. You're sitting on your sofa. It's 7:00. Sure, there are people on TV, but you're kind of playing against yourself or maybe a friend or a significant other. Jeopardy tapes at 10 a.m. They tape 5 shows in a day. So if you win, you get right back out and you have to do it again. There are 2 other people who are just as smart, if not smarter than you, who want to win just as badly as you. You have to be at the studio at 7:30, even if you start taping at 10 a.m. So the entire experience of being on the show is totally different than the experience that we have at home watching the show. And a lot of people who enjoy watching the show get kind of hit with a truck when they show up on set, even just in the green room, and you realize, oh wow, there's a bunch of other people that are just as smart as me. It's sort of like the experience that I think people have when they come from a small town or something, and they're the smartest or the best athlete or the best artist or the most interesting person in their town, and they go to college or they move to the city, and all of a sudden you're kind of just one of another smart person or another good athlete or whatever it is. And it's all very, very hard. And my now friend Ken Jennings has said that the experience is so dense that it took him it takes weeks and months to kind of process it and unpack it afterwards. Dean, I invited you. You were there for the taping of those first 2 weeks of shows. Mm-hmm. That was 2 days that spread out. That experience then happens in slow-mo over 2 weeks. You know what I mean? So to build something that dense, and you're reliving the questions you got right, the questions you got wrong, the daily doubles you wish you had picked, all that stuff. So it's a very intense and very concentrated experience that I think people at home, they even told me so you go back the next, you tape there's this idea that it's taped almost live, right? So it's the next day you go back to the studio and at 7:00 you tape it again, which obviously is not how any TV show is made, but it's really, I think that's all of that is shocking for a lot of people. The other thing that people are often surprised at is how little we interact with Alex Trebek. I mean, what you see on TV is the extent of our interaction. Everyone's like, "Oh, are you friends with Alex Trebek?" And I'm like, what you see is what I got, basically, which is okay. And there's tons of reasons for that. But I think there's this sense of we're all palling around on set when really, he asks you a question after halfway through the Jeopardy round, and then at the end of the show, while the credits are rolling, he kind of chit chats a little bit.
Buzzy, from the first appearance, how many consecutive shows did you do?
I did 10 consecutive shows. So I started I won a Monday game. So I was taped the first show, I won, I kept going, and then I came back the next day and taped 5 more Monday through Friday.
5 and 5.
Yeah.
After winning a couple, did you have confidence? Did it seem like you had a psychological advantage over the opponents?
No, it was really the second day. And part of that was I came in as a 5-day champion. Nobody really knew that I had sort of skated by the skin of my teeth on some of those wins. And the other very subtle thing that happened was I had previously gone to a taping as an alternate. So they have one extra person from the LA area who comes just in case somebody gets sick, there's an issue with someone's eligibility or whatever, and they've got an extra person on hand. So I had gone and I hadn't played as an alternate. The second tape day that I was on, the rehearsal board, so they let you go up and you hold the buzzer and you rehearse, and they make sure, you wait for them to say your name. There's all these little things that you kind of have to do when you're on the show that you don't have to do when you're on the couch. Like you wait for Alex Trebek to say your name before you answer, stuff like that. The rehearsal boards were the boards that I had played during the rehearsal when I was an alternate. So I knew what the information was and I knew where the daily doubles were. So I decided that during that rehearsal, I played incredibly aggressively, much more aggressively than I actually played the game, and found these daily doubles, made these huge bets, ran bottom, hard impossible categories that I was just oh yeah, which I only knew that information because 3 weeks earlier I had just seen it and I was spongy enough to remember it. And that, I think, and coming in as a 5-day champ, now people had in their minds oh, he's a 5-day champ and he's really good, even if I was sort of okay as a 5-day champ. And I think that second week, the other thing that happened, which Dean was sort of a part of, was I stopped guessing. When I sort of was oh, maybe it's this. I would just sit and not buzz in, which is probably the hardest thing to do on the show, because when you're home, you don't lose any money if you guess, and you kind of want to guess, but you start to build in a threshold for all right, if I'm 85% sure, I'll take a guess. I stopped guessing during that second tape day, and that was when I started having runaways. And I think it was a combination of sort of intimidating people and being able to sit and not wager a guess, which made the difference. And I started having all these games where I would get a little lead, people would start panicking, they would start guessing, and then they would, lose all this money. And so I could win with not a lot of money and not have to bet anything in Final Jeopardy.
Your experiences on Jeopardy led you to write a book.
That's right.
Which was recently released as an audio book called Get Ready. Could you tell us about that?
So when I came back for the Tournament of Champions, or when I knew I was coming back, I kind of realized all these things that we talked about, which is that the experience of being on the show, there's more to prepare for than just the content. And I think in general, people are very good at preparing for content and not very good at preparing for context, right? So you have a test and you study for the test, but you don't think about the fact that you're taking the test at 10 a.m. after you've had 2 cups of coffee, or, you've been studying the stuff, but you haven't done, practiced with a pencil and all of these other things. Or you have a job interview, you know kind of what you want to talk about, but you haven't tried on the clothes you're planning on wearing for the interview. And that day you try to put them on and they don't quite fit right. You're uncomfortable. There's all these different things that we don't take into account. And so when I was getting ready for the Tournament of Champions, I built all of that into my preparation. So I studied at the times of day when the show tapes. I would practice watching the show, standing up in dress shoes. I started wearing a suit and tie every day just to get used to doing that. And so it was just another day for me. I would go to the gym and hang from a chin-up bar and have one of the trainers at the gym quiz me to try to recreate the stress of being on the show, right? You're up there, the lights are on, you have to come up with it. And we've all been in that situation where we know it and we go blank because of the stress. So it's how can you can't get rid of the stress, but how can you get used to it so you can still kind of traverse it and get to the information? So I built all of that in, and I performed a lot better at the Tournament of Champions. And then after that, I decided to see how far I could go with it. I trained for and won a deadlifting competition, which I had never deadlifted before I entered the competition.
Didn't you set some kind of record?
No, I didn't set any record. I just won. I won an amateur national deadlifting competition. I took up tap dancing, which I've Corona has kind of put on hold because the last thing you want is to be locked in a house with somebody who's tap dancing all the time. So my family has kindly asked that I pause on the tap dancing, but I've been doing to replace it. I've been doing bossa nova guitar lessons, which has been really fun and much more pleasant. But I interviewed a bunch of really interesting people too. I got to interview a competitive coffee brewer, a glass blower, a U.S. attorney, a creative director who used to present to Steve Jobs. I mean, talk about a high intensity situation. Just to figure out, like, we all have these experiences doing this interview, for example, or, you know, going on a date or talking at your friend's wedding, that I think we all want to do our best. And most of the time we know we should prepare for, but we don't really know how to prepare for it. We're kind of using whatever we got in high school and college as our best practice. Like, oh, read through it a few times in front of the mirror. It's like, okay, that's a start. But are there better ways? You know, what's better than a mirror? Like hitting record on your phone and filming yourself doing it, because the second you hit record, all of that self-consciousness comes up, right? Mm-hmm. Like as a musician, I, will know how to play something. And the second I try to record, I make all the mistakes, right?
Oh, I'm not the only one.
So yeah, doing little things like that can help you get used to all the reality of the inner and outer context of the situation.
Right. So, by the way, speaking as your former English teacher, let me say that I really loved the book. I thought it was really, really well done.
Thank you.
It's called Get Ready, and it's available as an Audible original at audible.com. Everyone download it today.
Immediately, if not sooner.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your work. You mentioned about people presenting to Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
And I know that what you do for a living largely involves producing or licensing music, mainly for use in commercials. And that earlier in your career, I believe you were one person away from Steve Jobs working on the Apple account. Is that right?
Yeah. So I was a senior music supervisor at an ad agency called TBWA Media Arts Lab that was basically custom built for Apple. Our only client was Apple. So I was part of a 2-person and then a 3-person team that would my job was to find music for Apple ads or get people to make music for Apple ads. And then after that, now I'm kind of on my own doing the same thing for a bunch of different companies. But yeah, Steve Jobs was a really hard client, especially he was a music lover. And so he really wanted what we did to be as good as possible. He remembered if we would present a piece of music and then we would put it on something 6 months later, he would say, I already heard this piece of music. Even if he had said no to it, he didn't want to hear the same thing twice, which, now I would kind of argue like, well, if it wasn't right for 6 months ago, but it's right for this now. But he didn't care. That wasn't, he just wanted us to always be bringing him new ideas. And he worked in a really interesting way with the advertising, which was like the way most advertising is created or sold or whatever, which people are now familiar with thanks to Mad Men, is, you sell a script or a storyboard and then they say, okay, great. That's great. Go shoot it. And you're done. Steve Jobs was like, I don't know how it's going to feel based on a script or a storyboard. So Apple would give us the money to, in a lo-fi way, produce our ideas. So, in about 5 days, we would shoot and edit, and I would music supervise 10 commercials, all different concepts. Mm-hmm. And then we would present them to him and say, which one do you like the most? And the one that he liked the most, we would go and reshoot with, higher production value. But basically, we were making finished ads. Mm-hmm.
So all those Steve Jobs rejected Apple ads probably exist.
They're great.
They're down somewhere in the basement with the Lost Ark.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, there was some stuff that we did that was absolutely phenomenal. That and he was just like, he was so focused on the brand and what was right for the brand that it wasn't always the best or most moving commercial, you know, he would say like, this is great, but what I'm trying to do right now is convince people that an iPad isn't scary, or that you know what I mean? So even if it was like, oh, this is so fun, this is so cool, this is great. He's like, he always had a very clear idea of what the goal of the communication was.
In fact, the other day you told me something that really surprised me, although, you know, on reflection it makes sense, which was that the mood, the impression, that the emotional subtext that you were trying to convey in Apple ads was not that this is new and exciting,
right,
but this is familiar.
Yeah, especially I worked on a bunch of, and it was different. So for something, it really depended on the product. So for something like iTunes or the iPod, it was all about, this is where you find new fun music, right? But for something like the iPad, what we were really doing was connecting it to behaviors and experiences that people already knew. So reading the newspaper, watching a movie with your kids, reading a book, doing your homework, playing a game. These are things that we're already doing. We're just doing it on this new amazing piece of technology. And so a lot of the music for that was in fact very simple piano music. And a lot of it was that I worked on was an artist by the name of Chili Gonzalez. And he's made a bunch of records of solo piano music, but he has a very, he can do this sort of sweet, nostalgic piano that almost, it reminds me in a lot of ways of Randy Newman, his score work, where it's kind of, there's these kind of Joplin-y sort of things where it's hearkening back to a simpler, you know, it's like Main Street USA at Disneyland. It's like this sort of memory of an America or a life that never existed. And he's really good at capturing that and defanging something that would otherwise be very threatening to a lot of people. Right. But yeah, the role of the music in a commercial and a film and all kinds of different media is really conveying a lot of emotion, right? It's, we're being told all this information. And so the music is really about, how am I supposed to feel about all of this information? Am I excited about it? Is it new? Is it, like you said, is it something familiar? All these, there's a lot of different ways that the music works. Sometimes it's, something that's rhythmic, creates almost like an architecture for the edit. There's all these different ways that the music can function, but I think that emotional communication is a really important one. It's funny because one of my best friends is a film colorist, and I think in a lot of ways he does a very similar job. The way that the grade is done on a film does a lot to communicate an emotional response in a very subtle way. Do you make it more stark? Do you soften it? Is it warmer? Is it cooler? And I'm doing that same thing with the music.
Right, but whereas the composer for a feature film has 2 hours to do that, you've got to do it in 30 seconds or 15 seconds, which seems that it's got to be a very different kind of challenge. Yeah,
and that's actually kind of one of the reasons I enjoy working on commercials so much, is because what I say is like the dollar to second ratio is much higher on a commercial. If you think about not only the cost of producing a commercial, but then the money that's being spent on a commercial, on buying the ad space, we're talking about millions and millions of dollars. And so for me, there's a microscope on everything that happens. Every frame is right. Every line of the script has to be right. And for me, I love that, that music works. I get it. I'm in the right feeling is not good enough. Like it has to be, no, it has to really hit the target. And I love how intense that makes it. And it's
completely unforgiving.
Totally unforgiving. Like if it's not, it's one of those things where people are like, oh, that feels good, but if the lyrics aren't right, who cares? Or if the lyrics are right, but it's totally the wrong thing, and what's the point? Yeah.
It's got to be like writing haiku versus writing a novel.
Exactly.
If you got one syllable off, it doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah. That's a great analogy for it. I mean, I still do a little bit of work in features, mostly some scripted features and some feature docs, but I like the intensity and also the speed. You know, a commercial, the whole thing is done in a matter of weeks, whereas a film can go on for months and months and months. And the kind of, I like that it's like this really intense, incredibly rigorous process, and then it's done and you've moved on to the next thing, and the next thing could be totally different.
Several years ago, there was an Apple ad, which I believe you were responsible for the music, which to me would be the epitome of making computers warm and fuzzy and old-fashioned, which was Nat King Cole singing "Chestnuts Roasting on
that was the
Open
first
Fire."
thing I worked on. Yeah,
Ah.
it was the first thing I worked on when I got there. It was a commercial. It was a holiday commercial for, and it was FaceTime was still pretty new, so it was a whole thing. And yeah, so we tapped Nat for just that, like, oh yeah, it's still the holidays, it's classic Christmas, and when you're not together, you still get that feeling that of whatever you imagine Christmas being from It's a Wonderful Life and whatever else that wasn't actually your childhood, but what, you know, the media has convinced you was your childhood. Here's a great trivia question about It's a Wonderful Life. Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
There are two characters in It's a Wonderful Life who gave their name to two much more famous characters.
Two characters who gave their name.
Yeah.
More famous characters.
Yeah.
Well, you got.
And
I
would say that the two more famous characters debuted in the 70s. I think that's right. Or late 60s.
And the more famous characters were characters in movies, in feature films?
Television. You guys, I stumped him.
Hold on. Bert and Ernie.
He's got it. Bert and Ernie.
Wow.
Yeah. It was the policeman and the taxi driver?
Ward Bond and Frank Phelan.
Oh,
Yeah. So
wow.
that's where Jim Henson got Bert and Ernie.
Okay, what prize did I win today?
You got a clap.
Oh, good.
Yeah, there's fun. I'm part of this online trivia league. This is an aside, but just for you guys, I'm part of this online trivia league, and it's very competitive, and it's all on the honor system, like no cheating, no forfeit, whatever. And it's this huge thing. It's totally complicated. And when you win the whole thing, which is very hard to do, like you have to get up the ladder to the A level, and when you win the A level, there's a championship where all the A level champions play against each other. You win a scarf.
That scarf means more than the world.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Buzzy, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been so much fun.
It's my pleasure. My pleasure. I hope everyone enjoyed hearing me get stumped, which happens all the time. That's how you become a good trivia person, is you don't know something and you want to learn it, right?
Right.
Now go watch Creed.
Yeah, go watch Creed, the most underrated film of the last 10 years.
Good.
All
okay,
right,
good. See you later.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Filmosophers Movie Talk Show. Please subscribe to stay up to date on our newest episodes.